Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms. And today, I have all three dogs, but Tucker just jumped down. And I have Boo Radley with me. How are you doing today, Boo Radley? He says, well, I feel very pretty because I just went very handsome. You look very handsome today. He said, I just went and I got groomed today, and I have my bandana on, and he loves his little bandana. So he's gonna sit over here. Because we're going to tell some dog stories today. And Peepee, come here, Peeps. Peepee is right here, and he is so excited. They stayed at the kennel last night. They stayed at the hotel, and they had a good time. And their Aunt Tanya, my best friend who owns the kennel, she made this really cute little area for them, and they had like a 10 by 10 pen, and they were so excited when they went there. Do you hear this? Boo Radley's doing this down here. So anyway, I was like reading through all of my old blogs today, and I was like wanting to tell some kind of poignant story that meant something to me, and I was like, none of these stories are really resonating with me today. And I was just kind of sitting here, and I've been sending pictures of the dogs to Alex, my husband, and showing up. Boo Radley, I think that we got that dirt up off the chair. So anyway, I was sitting here and I was like talking to the dogs and stuff, and if you're anything like me, like throughout the day, I'm by myself. I mean, almost like 80% of the time, unless I have business I have to go do, or meetings or something like that. And so he is still digging behind me. Dogs are hilarious. So Peepee and Boo and Tucker are my best friends. Do you see this? This is my life. So anyway, I was sitting here and I was like, I think that I want to tell a story about the dogs, and especially about Boo and Tucker. And he's digging. This is hilarious. So anyway, he never does this unless I'm on camera. So anyway, I need to tell a little story. So I had a dog back in the day. I got a sobriety dog when I got sober. I was about 2 years sober, and I really, really wanted a dog. And so my dad found this dog for me. And everything seemed to align with the universe. Like, the people that we were getting the dog from, that my dad had talked to, they were in Kentucky. I wanted a Jack Russell Terrier because I had been in a car accident. Like, the first 6 months that I got sober, yes, the first 6 months that I was sober, and my friend's Jack Russell Terrier was in the car with us, and we got hit by a drunk driver, and the dog died instantly. So there were a lot of things that, like, aligned with why I was supposed to get this dog. And, the family that were going to give the dog to me or sell the dog to me, they were also in sobriety. So, like, the whole thing was, like, kismet, right? And I was so excited about it. Well, I went down and I looked at the dog, like, before, like, right when it was born. They were so cute. Oh, my God. So, anyway, she called me, like, 4 or 5 weeks later, and she was like, she was crying on the phone, and she said, I have some really sad news. She said, I cannot give you this dog. And I said, well, what's wrong? And she said, well, the dog is deaf. And she's like, I've been banging pans around it. It's completely deaf. And she said, and I said, okay, that's fine. And she said, no, I don't think you understand. She was like, deaf dogs need like attention 24 hours a day because they scare very easily. They have a lot of anxiety. They can't be around other dogs. They can't be around a lot of other people. You have to keep them, by themselves. And I was like, okay. So she said, but my friend has a litter of Jack Russells, but she shows them, and I'll let you have the pick of the litter. And I was like, okay. And she said, my friend is like, but Boo Radley is behind me. I mean, he is just circling like crazy against my back right now. I don't know if you guys can see it or not. Boo Radley, are you settled? So anyway, so I got this dog, and I go down there to pick up this dog, and the dog was gorgeous, perfection, right? And at that time, I was with my first boyfriend. Within 2 weeks, this dog was this big when we got him. Within 2 weeks, this dog was the most aggressive dog I have ever seen in my entire life. And would bite us, would bite anybody else, tore carpet off the floor, tore anything in front of it. And so long story short, I ended up having this dog for 11 years. And honestly, part of it for me was an amends. And I tell this story a lot in the rooms of 12-step programs that I'm in. But I had a dog when I was growing up. And his name was Clifford, and he was an Airedale. Clifford, like the big red dog. And I wasn't ever mean to him. I was never cruel to him. I just didn't pay him a lot of attention as I got older because I was focused on my partying. So like if I was drinking on the weekends with my friends or staying out all night long, like Clifford loved me. He would lay outside my door, my bedroom door, and then he would wait for me to come home. And like a lot of times I would come home and I'd be like, hey Clifford, and I would like step over him and close the door. Like I just didn't give him any attention. And later in life, I mean, he became my dad's dog, really, and slept at the foot of my dad's bed. And he lived to be, I think, like 16 years old. But when I got sober, I felt bad. I felt like, I never gave this dog the attention that he wanted. And all he ever wanted from me was love, right? And when you're in the midst of your, addiction, it's like you don't give people and things the attention they need. So one of my amends, when I talked to my sponsor about it, was how to pay back Clifford, right? And he was like, well, you could go to the Humane Society and you could donate time. And I was like, no, I did that for community service on my last arrest. I had to do like 160 hours or something like that at the Humane Society. Putting cats in boxes so they could clean out their cages and put them back in. I was like, I will never do that again. So he was like, okay. He was like, well, you could write a letter and, burn it and read it out. I was like, no. And he was like, or you could get a different dog or another dog and you could treat it differently and give it all the attention in the world. And I was like, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. So that's why I ended up getting this dog, right? Well, I mean, over time, it was horrific. It had a lot to do with why my first boyfriend and I broke up. It was really unbelievable living conditions. In the 11 years he lived, 11 and a half years, in the 11 years that he lived, I was like unwilling to get rid of him. I took him to many, many vets. He was on all different kinds of medication. At one time, he was on Prozac. I mean, it was crazy, right? And we took him off of Prozac because that wasn't working. We took him to another vet. We took him to so many vets. We took him to so many experimental vets. I don't mean experimental like weird. I mean like vets that do research on these kind of issues. And everybody just told me, they were like, you're going to have to put this dog to sleep. You're going to have to put this dog to sleep. And I was like, I can't do it. Like, I cannot do it, right? And my best friend Tanya owns a dog kennel, and I would call her and I would say, like, I don't know if it's time yet. I don't know if it's time yet. And she would say to me, it's not time yet. Like, just, let's see if we can maybe get some training. So I got a trainer and we did 6 months of training and that didn't work. And I went to a different trainer and I spent so much money on this dog, right? And my ex and I were the ones that were probably the most affected by this dog. It was so bad, like I couldn't put his food down on the floor because he would attack my hand. So I had to wait until he was in the other room, put the food on the floor, and then call him in there. To take him outside, I had like a lead, like a cloth lead, and I would throw it over his head, and he would attack me the whole time that I was throwing it over his head. And then I would just we would go outside, and then when we came back, it had to just naturally fall off over like the course of an hour. And that was how I had to walk him. My mother never came into my apartment during 2 relationships. Not once did she come in my apartment in 11 years. Period. She was terrified of dogs. We never had guests over. It was horrible. And even my best friend that owned a dog kennel, she would have him at the kennel because she would say, let him be here for a week. We'll take a break. He can run and whatever. And she would say, I watched him and it's just something switches in him. Like he's not organically right. Like something just switches in him. You can tell like he's so normal. And then the next second he's just gone. My ex, who was a hairstylist, had to go to the emergency room, I think twice, maybe 3 times, because his hand was so mangled by him. And this is not like we did anything wrong. Like this is we reached down to pet the dog and the dog just attacked. I used to tell stories about this all the time and people just didn't even believe me. They'd be like, why didn't you get rid of the dog? What was so sad to me was when I called this woman back, she said to me, I called her back at 6 months and I said, I don't know what to do with this dog, right? And I've been thinking a lot about this today and I'll tell you why. Because I was watching the local news last night and they were saying that they're getting rampant calls from people. It is like sub-zero weather here in Indianapolis, and that so many people are leaving their dogs outside that animal control is 24 hours a day on it, trying to go find these dogs. And they showed this picture of this Rottweiler named Brownie. And Brownie's paws were cracked and bleeding on the snow. And the people were like, well, we didn't know that we couldn't leave it outside for an hour. And I'm like, there is a special place, okay, in hell for people that do not treat animals correctly. I'm sorry. When you leave an animal outside like that, I dealt with an aggressive animal that bit my face. Bit my right here. My dad said if he was an inch closer to your whatever it is, carotid artery, he said you would have been dead, okay? Jumped off the couch onto I wasn't doing anything, just walked by. I dealt with an aggressive dog for 11 years, and people do not know any better than to put their dogs outside for only a minute. I stand outside with the dogs, and literally, if they're gone outside more than a minute, I bring them inside. I found out yesterday it's a criminal offense to leave your dog outside in sub-zero weather. Did you know that? So if you didn't know that, If you have an animal and you have left it outside and you don't know where it is and you haven't gone and looked for it, like, you need to get rid of having pets. You have no business having pets, period. That's how I feel about it. I said to my friend Tanya last night, I said to her, can you believe people leave their dogs outside in this cold weather? And she's like, no. And she was like, and then when they act like they didn't know that you couldn't leave your dog outside, she goes, those people have no business having a pet. I totally agree. So anyway, you know, so I've been thinking about dogs and like what you do for dogs and going above and beyond, you know, and one time, he had to go and have his like shots done for the year, and it was such a hard time getting him to the vet because he would just like, I couldn't even have him in the car with me because I was afraid that he would like attack me while I was driving the car, and then we would both be dead, you know. And so the vet gave me sleeping pills to give him, right? And he gave me 5 sleeping pills, and he said, give him the first one an hour before we leave, or you leave. And he goes, then give him a second one right before you get in the car. And he goes, when you get him in the car, he'll just pass out and fall asleep. 4 pills later, this dog was raging in my car. I mean, it was unbelievable. So flash forward, my ex and I break up. And he even said to me one time, he said, if I ask you to get rid of the dog, I said, please don't ever ask me to do that. Like, don't ask me to get rid of this dog. Like, you know, I can't. So at 11 and a half years, he started having some medical complications that were pretty bad. I met Alex, and Alex had little Pee-Pee. And at the time, Pee-Pee was 2 years old, and he was this big. And Alex said, okay, he goes, let's try to get the two together and see how they are. And so we tried to get them together, and I'll never forget because it was on the walkway right in front of where we live now. And my dog literally, it was like, you could see the look in his eyes. He was like, I'm killing this thing. Like, I'm going to kill it. And I was like, Alex, take him away. We can't get them together. So then I was like, I don't know what to do. And I sat down and I had a conversation with my friend Tanya, and she said, you have given this dog 11 and a half really good years. She was like, you haven't dated anybody that won't like be around this dog. Your mother hasn't been in your, apartment, on and on and on. I didn't really know what to do at this point. And she's like, and now the dog has medical complications that you may have to like put him to sleep for anyway. She's like, you need to call the vet. She's like, but I'm telling you, Peter, she goes, you've done all you can do for this dog. So I called the vet, and the vet was like, the likelihood of this dog living another 3 or 4 months without having to put it to sleep with these medical conditions anyway is probably not high. And they said, give yourself the relief, give yourself, or the dog the relief, and allow it to go, like, peacefully, And they said to me, and I'll never forget this last vet, and she's the vet, that I've worked with recently, and she said, he is not happy. Like, when you see a dog that's that aggressive, like, they're not happy. And he wasn't. He couldn't run. He couldn't be, like, I couldn't have him anywhere, be around anybody. So anyway, I'll never forget, like, the day that we scheduled to do it. And it was, people ask me all the time. They're like, what was the hardest day of your life? Was it when your mom passed away? And I'm like, no. Like, it was, one of the days was when I had my dog put to sleep. Because I wasn't ready for it, really, And so what happened was, we had gotten Boo and Tucker at that point. Alex found Boo and Tucker, and he said, I want you to have dogs that you can have in your face, that you can hold, that you can sleep with. Because I'd never had that, not once in my entire life, that you can enjoy. And so we had to get them when he found them. And so we had them like a week before, and we had Pee-Pee, in bed with us, my dog in the basement in a crate, and we had, Boo and Tucker in a crate in the bathroom. We were separating all three. It was crazy. And so the night before, I had Alex take Boo and Tucker and Pee-Pee to his mom's house, and I sat up all night long because Tanya was going to go with me the next day. And he and we watched My Dog Skip, which is about a Jack Russell Terrier, and I fed him a special meal. And then I took a bunch of pictures, and so anyway, the next morning I got up. I can't believe I'm getting so emotional. It's been so long it's been 10 years since this happened. October, 10 years ago. And then I called Tanya and I said, what time do you want me to pick you up? And she said, sweetie, we're not gonna be able to do it today. She goes, I called the vet already. She said, because somebody called in sick. So I called Alex. And I said, can you keep the dogs there for the night? I said, I'm going to have to redo this. And he goes, what are you talking about? I said, I'm going to watch the movie. And so I did it again the next night. We watched My Dog Skip. And all that kind of stuff. And I'll never forget, like, when I was driving him to the vet, you know, there was just something so spiritual about the moment. And I'll never forget, it was like the first time, like, he was always so horrible in the car. And he was sitting there in the car, and I recorded this, and he was in the car, and he had his head out the window, and he just seemed so peaceful. And that will be always how I remember him, you know. And, it's weird when you think about amends, you know, and making amends to people and making amends to things in life. And I truly feel like when I drove away that day, I had such a hard time, you guys. Like, that was the worst. I was prepared for my mom passing away like a month before, but I wasn't prepared. It's such a different feeling. I can't even explain it to you, you know. You get prepared for things in life, but I wasn't prepared for this. His medical stuff happened very, very quickly. I mean, it went downhill really quickly, and we didn't know what to do. And so, anyway, I drove away that day, and I had such a sense of relief, you know? And ever since then, I have just had these 3 adorable pups that kiss my face and sleep next to me every day. I mean, Tucker sleeps by my head every night. You know, I'm never afraid that they're going to bite me. They've never once ever bitten me. They very rarely growl, you know, and I'm like, I think in some divine way, like, I repaid that amends. And I will never forget, and I'll link it below if anybody hasn't read it, but the Rainbow Bridge prayer, like, I ended up getting his ashes back, and they called me and they said, you know, they're here, and they packaged them up really nice, and they sent a card with, like, you know, everybody's signature on it, and they had put his paw print. And they put it in a card with the Rainbow Bridge prayer on it, you know, and I know it's cheesy, but, like, I like to think that way. I like to think that our pets are over there, you know, and they're waiting for us, and maybe he's right in the head this time. Maybe he's not aggressive, you know. Maybe he's enjoying just running. I can only hope. But I think it's important to right our wrongs, and I think it's important to make amends to things in life and to get things out. And I think that in return, we get the things that we deserve. And that is why I think today I have such amazing little pups in my life. And I just wanted to share that story with you guys. I love you, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.